And welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. We're gonna more of a live stream tonight for Army fans to interact with us about the game yesterday. We went live last night, and some internet issues, and we weren't able to get some comments in from fans about the game. The 13-7 loss to Air Force yesterday. So we wanted to have this live stream as an opportunity to interact with Army fans or people that follow our work and just talk some Army football for a little bit on a Sunday night. What else? What else you got to do anyway on a Sunday night, right? Brendan and Seth, we got nothing better to do at on a Sunday night. Welcome in Seth Mendelson from Black Knight Nation and Brendan in Jersey. This live stream is sponsored by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company run by Joe Ross, a former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, former Army officer, guest on the Black Knight Nation podcast. Man, it's like 7 days for podcasts, man. Definitely getting our money's worth here. With reviews, previews, with interviews, and hopefully we'll get a few more of those on. Had Kevin Ward, Army wrestling coach, on earlier in the week. They start their season today against Oregon State and LIU. They took the mat today. We had the 72 team a week ago, a couple members of the 72 Army team a week ago, which was good to dive into the history of the program. And tonight we'll do another recap. I think, Seth, we talked so much. Did we break down almost every aspect of the game last night? I mean,
I
I know I
thought
bounced in and out of it, right? But
I
I
thought
mean,
we
we
had it covered. I mean, it was a defensive struggle as we talked about, and there wasn't that much to talk about the offense besides the fact that there wasn't much, and
yeah,
for
right.
reasons. But yeah, I thought we covered it. We were on for over an hour.
Yeah, it was busy, but we want to get Brendan's opinion on the game. Maybe his take. Maybe he has some different perspectives on the game right now. Right now, we appreciate it. Right now, we're getting a lot of people on, guys. If you're watching right now, please send in your comments and questions about the game against Air Force, the program, where we're heading here, and we'll get them on, and we'll answer them and post them. Brendan, first, let's get your opinion on the on the game yesterday.
Yeah, definitely a frustrating watch, especially after the first half that Army had. But Sal, this is something you and I have talked about the past few weeks. Army is just they're giving away too much for free this season, whether it's points, yardage, etc. Either because of boneheaded coaching decisions like going for it on fourth down in like deep in your own territory,
Yeah.
or just kind of, I don't even want to call it absent-mindedness, but just uh, maybe a lack of aggression sometimes from some of the players, like when kind of random things happens as they do. Dan from Dan from As for Football really likes to say it's an oblong ball and weird things happen sometimes. And when weird things happen, you got to be you got to expect the unexpected sometimes, and sometimes you just got to dive on a ball even though the whistle's already blown. But yeah, I mean, we saw it yesterday. It was a game they couldn't afford to do it, and they did it. um they had a fourth down in their own territory, and they went for it, and they didn't get it. And thanks to the spirited Army defense, Air Force only got 3 points out of it, but still, you're giving points away for free. And but even with that, Army was winning at halftime. The those ESPN predicted win percentages had them at 57% to win the game at halftime, and they got the ball at halftime, and they just never did anything with the ball ever again, outside of the one touchdown drive. And yeah, super frustrating. Couldn't believe that they weren't trying to get the ball to more guys. I mean, really, they only used the top two fullbacks in the game. Would have thought maybe they would have rotated those guys a little bit more. But really, with the first snap, putting putting Tyler and Jones out there in the same backfield, I was like, oh wow, Brent Davis really dialed something up for this game, and then that never happened again, and nothing ever materialized from it. So, yeah, just a frustrating watch to say the least. But the defense
Had a
played well, and
couple
the special teams played well.
Yeah, had a couple thoughts that I was texting somebody today about the game a little bit. And one, the person who I was texting was talking about how many times they run the same play over and over again. And Seth, we talked about that last night. You're running a dive up the middle, you're running up the middle, and that was a topic of conversation today. But also, I was thinking about this, and you hit it a little bit, Brendan, on the fullbacks, right? You have Riley and Buchanan in there. Yeah, there was not a lot of production from the fullbacks. They had, you know, off the top of my head, I'm gonna do the quick math. I think they had 10 carries combined. I think they had 10 carries combined the whole game. And when you go 66 plays for Air Force, 49 plays for Army, we talked about time of possession being in favor by Air Force by 10 minutes yesterday. Um, I was wondering where Hayden Reed was. And I know he's a freshman, right? And I know he's you know, I think he was a little banged up. I think he missed the game, maybe the Louisiana Monroe game because of injury. But I thought that, what was lacking a little bit in this game, if you're going to run the quarterback as much as you're going to run the quarterback in this game, right? You got to get some blocking, and not just blocking from the line. You have to get blocking from the receivers. You have to get blocking from your tight end if he's in the game, the slot backs. And you have to get blocking from the fullback. And I thought that watching Hayden Reed progress this season, I think he's gotten better as a blocker. He plays well without the ball, Hayden Reed. To me, he plays well without the ball, and I just wondering maybe, yeah. I mean, I was thinking, wait, he's hurt still, right? But no, he was dressed for the game and didn't get in. I don't believe he got an offensive snap. I could be wrong. I have to do snap counts on the game still, and another head shaker for me, head scratcher, shaker, whatever you want to call it, was I really thought that coming into this game that Brahim Murphy would play a role in the game. He had the kick return that was turned back because of a penalty against Louisiana Monroe. He's made some big plays during the season, and you don't see Brahim Murphy to the start of I think he's enters the game in the second quarter of the game. And I wondered maybe he was banged up possibly or something, and I didn't hear anything about an injury. And those are two players, but if it's not working with what you have on the field, then we talked about this, Seth, right? Maybe give some other guys a shake. I know it's a huge game, right? And you want to go with your experienced players, but you have to also trust some other guys in there, I think, maybe.
I think the key thing here, I thought about it overnight. I actually talked to a couple of people. One guy was at the game, not an Army or Air Force fan, a college football fan, was down in Texas and decided to go to the game. And he knows what he's talking about. And he was amazed by what Army was doing over and over again. You guys said it before, running the same plays. We're not giving our fullbacks and we're not giving our receivers the chance to block because every play is a dive up the middle. And that goes back to just making sure your offensive line can, push back their defensive line, open some holes. We're not seeing that stuff. We're seeing the same plays. The more I think about this, the more I'm sitting there saying, boy, this is on the coaching staff. This is on Davis. This is on Munkin. Anybody else you want to throw in there, because they weren't prepared for the Air Force defense. They ran the same things over and over again. If it's not going to work, you got to try something else. And they didn't. They refused to. Even on the last series where it was desperation time, they got about 20 yards, I guess, right? 25 yards over, 6 or 7 plays. But that's with Air Force playing, a zone, a prevent defense. They were still doing it. And, to me, it doesn't make any sense. As we discussed last night, it's one of two things. They either don't have the talent and they realize that, and this is all we can do, or they don't. There's no imagination.
Yeah, we have Mike Felowski coming in. Received a message from Mike today. Big fan of our podcast. We really appreciate your interest and your support, Mike. Thanks so much. And he says we have an extremely physical and talented tight end, and he is not even an option to catch a pass. And we talked about that yesterday, right, Seth? We talked about maybe running that tight end up the seam and maybe getting him involved. And I mean, Josh Lingenfelter is one of the top rated, the PFF Pro Football Focus. He's one of the top rated tight ends in the country as far as blocking. And you know, you might. I think there's something there, and I'm not saying you're passing the ball to him every other play, but I mean, he is. He seems like he. I will say this about Josh Lingenfelter too. A couple times when Army's defense was on the field in the fourth quarter of the game, the CBS broadcast showed Josh Lingenfelter on the field, on the sidelines, trying to get the crowd into the game. So he's into it on the sidelines. He's shown he's a fantastic blocker, um, upper echelon blocker, and I don't know. I mean, they don't even really throw his way. There was a play I thought I saw during the Louisiana Monroe game where he was open and maybe the Army quarterback kept it or threw short instead. I mean, I don't know if defenses are paying too much attention to Josh Lingenfelter running routes these days because he doesn't get thrown the ball. Same with Cole Catterbone. They don't get thrown the ball,
Yeah.
So if
what does that say to you? What does that say to you that they're not throwing the ball to different people? We had 4 consecutive and correct me if I'm wrong, we had 4 consecutive 4 and outs. Okay, 1 at the end of the first half and then 3 at the beginning of the second half. Okay, so we had not counting the punt, that means we had 12 plays that went for nothing pretty much. Okay, why don't you just try something? Come on. I mean, if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? You're going to do it against UMass? You're going to do it, the Navy game when we're 4-7? It doesn't. This was an important game. At halftime, or early in the second, in the third quarter, when you see things aren't going well, that's what these coaches get paid for. They get paid for it to change on a dime, and to realize that if Air Force is doing one thing, we got to do something else. But they didn't. They didn't do anything else the whole game. My son, my kids are really into sports, and they're both pretty damn good at analyzing football and some other sports. And my oldest son says to me, they ran the same play. It's like, what's going on here? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results? Well, guess what?
Yeah.
We saw an example of that yesterday.
I mean, I totally understand that, we are never going to be an air raid team. I don't want them to be, but even still, even with all those caveats, I cannot believe that in his entire career, Lingenfelter has 2 career receptions, and both of them went for 25 yards at least. Like,
so that's you can't catch the ball,
yeah,
and lucky, or something's wrong. It's one of the 2 things. He can't run a route, and he caught 2 passes by luck. He stuck to his fingers. Okay, or something's wrong that we're not utilizing him or anybody else on that field to break up what we're doing. Everything we do is between the tackles. Almost everything West Point did yesterday was between the tackles, and
it's predictable. Yeah, it's predictable. The offense is pretty predictable right now. Not just the dives, the passing routes too are pretty predictable. They know Isaiah Alston is going to be pretty much targeted. I'll look up the stat in a couple minutes. But like we said, I mean, Lingenfelter's a good. We mentioned it yesterday, and to have a fan even notice it too, and send us a comment on it. It's something that are we going to see in the Troy game on the first series a pass to Josh Lingenfelter? I probably not, man. But it would be. I don't know. Will we see a pass on the first the first drive?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I think too. I noticed a lot too. Seth, go ahead. Sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
If the pass is not successful to him, okay, let's say he drops it or it's a bad pass or whatever happens, a good defense. Okay, there's no reason why you can't go back again. Later on, not necessarily right away, but later on, try different. I'm a broken record today, guys, and I apologize because of what I saw yesterday. This takes us back to the Ellison days where I sat in my seats on the 35-yard line, and I was calling the plays, and I was right 90% of the time. This is what we're back to right now. Now, again, is it because of the talent, or is it because of the coaching, or both? I don't know the answer. It's one or the other, or both.
I am going to put this as diplomatically as I can, and I know Steve would not like me saying this, but I will not be sad if at the end of the season we see a change at offensive coordinator for Army. I seriously doubt it'll happen because because he and Monken are boys, and I just don't see that. I just don't see things coming to that. But man, and granted, Army's record in Academy games the past 8 years, head and shoulders above what it's been, the previous 25 or, however far you want to take it back to. I totally get that. But there's a pattern here. This is now what, 17 Service Academy games in the Monken era that have had the same offensive coordinator, and the most points they've scored in any of these games is 21. And it's happened 3 times, and one of the times it only went that high because the game went to overtime. So, and I get that. I think the difference in the academies is less. Like, the delta between the academies is less than it's ever been, in terms of recruiting and all of that. But man, I remember as an Army fan sitting through a lot of losses when Army was bad and the other teams were good, where they scored a lot more than 21 points on the other side. So, and I don't know. I think sometimes with coaches, it's just like you have a shelf life, and at a certain point, you just got to move on somewhere else, because either your thinking needs to change, or the personnel just isn't responding to you anymore. And I mean, like, we're reaching in the dark here. We don't have any firm answers, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I can really say.
I think that if this season, if they can't, um, get can't turn it around, so to speak, and we're heading into the ninth game of the season, right? So if they can't beat Troy, they can't beat UConn, they can't beat UMass or Navy. If they end up, say, 4-8, 5-7, there'll be changes. I mean, that's you look at that 2019 season, that they didn't have a winning season for Army. There were changes on the staff, right? You look at last year, they were 9-4, but guys who are guys move on, like you said, Brendan. Guys move on to different schools. They have a handful of new coaches this year. A couple on offense, a couple on defense, and move some guys around, and it's going to happen. You're not usually going to go with the same staff. I mean, when it was going well for them and they were winning those 10, had those 10 and 11 game seasons, you want to keep the same staff intact, right? You want
Sure.
everything's going well. And now, I mean, you kind of, and I know that Jeff Monken's the guy who's never satisfied. They could win every game by 3-4 touchdowns, and he's a guy that still would never be satisfied. So he is he's looking for every
Yeah.
place he can to try to get some results and try
And
to improve this team.
Oh,
and
does he coach? Does he coach like he's a guy who's not satisfied? Game day coaching. I mean, in the
I
last
don't want to get I don't
last,
want to get into the head of
yeah,
game day coaching. Really, that's hard.
but
I mean,
it doesn't
you know
seem that.
what? I will say this, Seth. I think that sometimes the analytics is a bit too much for me personally, and sometimes
yeah,
I feel like there's more of a gut that should. And again, never coached a football game in my life. Coached a little travel basketball and a little town baseball, but never coached a game in my life. But I think sometimes, like, I think there was like a penalty in one of the last couple games, and like you're waiting and waiting to see what Army could do, and there's the analytics book, and I don't know. I just sometimes sometimes you just want to coach with your gut, and I get I think that's what Coach Monken does. But sometimes the analytics too. I think sometimes the analytics too will get in the way. Like you're telling me like the analytics tell you to go for 4th and 1 from your own 12. No, that's a gut feeling, right? That's a gut feeling that you're gonna.
After
So it's
Georgia
like
State.
analytics here, gut feeling there, and
He said to me
you
after
know,
Georgia State, you were there. He said that's what we do when he went for 4th and 1 on their own
Yeah.
20-yard line. That's what he said to me. You were there. He goes, that's what we
yeah,
do.
I would like to see like on those plays, right? And we know his success rate in his career, Jacoby Buchanan, right? We know his success rate on the 4th and shorts. This year, they've been stopped a couple times, right? I would
And
like to
he's
see
been
his.
playing hurt.
Yeah, he's banged up, and
I would feel so much. I would feel so much better if they were running even just yesterday. If they were running Riley on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 instead of Buchanan, I would have felt so much better about like those calls.
I would feel
I
so
was
much
going to
better
say
if they did something different besides give the ball to the fullback where everybody knows it's coming.
That's true, and I do want to say I do want to make this very clear that my feelings about this, it's not just play calling. To me, it's bigger than that. It's player evaluation, especially a quarterback, and player development. I mean, like when was the last time they really developed a quarterback? I think it was Ahmad Bradshaw. You know,
Kelvin Hopkins. Kelvin Hopkins was
Kelvin
pretty
Hopkins
darn
to a
good.
degree as well, but you know,
Christian Anderson was pretty solid
yeah,
his final year.
but this is something I said earlier this year. I just like I, they've 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 tried to play it so safe, and to me you can't do that. You like and I understand these games for Army and especially in Service Academy games are played on a knife's edge, but you have to take a risk, and risk to me doesn't mean throwing in a trick play once a year against Navy. It's taking a chance on a guy who maybe, hasn't played yet, but like he's going to see reps eventually, so you may as well get him in there earlier than
I
later.
said that last night. Who's the fastest offensive player, running back who can play on the team? Who's the fastest running back on the team?
Well, it's Tyrell Robinson, but he's hurt. So
Okay, we know he's hurt. Besides him,
Marshall?
probably Miles Stewart, Marshall or Miles Stewart. Miles Stewart has some good burst. He had a kick return, I think, against Louisiana Monroe. That was pretty solid. Miles Stewart at the prep school was a pretty good kick return guy and a big play guy. So
okay.
he's only a sophomore, but you're gonna we talked about this. The slot backs aren't getting many touches, right? One by a true slot back last yesterday's game by Ijon Marshall, one carry, and I was looking through the targets from yesterday. So Austin got targeted 4 times. Ijon Marshall got targeted 3 times. And then you have Riley getting targeted on that. Was that a screen pass or was that just a pass in the flat to Riley in on the last drive? Balan, Catterbone, and Daniel once and Brahim Murphy twice. I mean, they were trying to throw to the slot backs. Bay Knight here with just an OL coming up. Bay Knight, if you have any comments and you're watching this live stream right now, please send us your comments on the game yesterday from Air Force or your general comments about where the team's at right now at 3-5, heading into their final third of the season. Seth, Brendan, and I will answer your questions and post your comments here. I don't know where I was at there, guys.
I'll say this: we got Troy next week. They're a good team. We're playing at Troy in Alabama. We better see something different besides up the middle rushes from the quarterback and the fullbacks. If we don't, that says to me that we got a real problem here. That says we have a real problem because this isn't working, and Troy's a better team than Air Force is. I think. Maybe not, but I think so. I'm going to guess they are, at least at the same level. And we almost beat Air Force, won by 6 points. But the bottom line is that we got to see something different. If we see the same thing going on next week, I'm going to get on this next weekend, right? And I'm going to say to you guys, hey, there's something going on here. there's something going on because it didn't work. It hasn't worked the whole year, except against teams that we should be beating. Okay, and did Monroe win last night? Does anybody know if they won?
No, they didn't. They're 3-6.
Okay,
I think they're
so
3-6. Yeah,
and Georgia State's not a very good team, right? We know that.
They're 4. They're 4-5. I mean,
yeah, they've been coming back.
Yeah,
they're competitive. They're competitive.
They're competitive. We should have won that game. But if I see them going out against Troy and doing the same thing again, I'm sorry. That says to me that there's something wrong with the talent or the coaching. I keep saying the same thing, and I apologize. Talent, coaching, or both. And we need changes made. Okay, it means we need to bring in better kids if we can. Maybe we're not getting the right kids, and maybe it's not possible. So Bay Knight says we have no outside run threat. I think that's what the word is, threat, right?
Yeah. I mean, once Robinson's gone and they don't give Marshall a chance, or they don't give Ibrahim Murphy a chance. I mean, against Louisiana Monroe, they had some slot backs, had production, right? I mean, they were able to get something out of their slot backs, and I think that's going to be there if you can get to a point where you feel comfortable to pitch. I saw one play in the game against Air Force. I think it was Murphy. I could be wrong. Where Jones, you don't want to turn over the ball in the service academy games, right? So there was like about a razor's thin edge to pitch the ball to a slot back, and the ball was kept. I don't know what the percentage of reading right is a quarterback. That's one of the toughest jobs in college football, in my opinion, option quarterback, and getting 100% of your reads right, because you're going to be faced with, spur of the moment decisions that you have to make. You have to be really, really good on what you're seeing out there, your vision out there. The run threat, you need a run threat. Here we're going to have Mike Falkowski also coming in here saying, we have some young B-backs who hit the hole pretty quick, may not have the size of our starters, but need to try something different at this point. Maybe a Markel Johnson,
totally agree
maybe
with
a
that.
Hayden. Yeah, maybe a Hayden Reed. Give those guys a shot. If they're healthy, give those guys a shot. Rotate them in, see what you got. I mean, if you're averaging one,
let's stretch. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off, but let's stretch the offense. Everything's being done in a small part of the field. I saw Air Force lining up against us in the second half, and maybe the whole game. I didn't really pay that much attention early on, but I noticed that early in the second half, they were boxed in. They knew we weren't going outside. They knew we pretty much weren't passing it, and they did what they had to do. I remember the Mike Mayweather days, probably before both of you guys. I don't know. Sal, were you around for? Were you guys around for Mike Mayweather?
No, I didn't see him play.
My time.
Okay. Mike Mayweather was a great running back. But let me tell you something. He had really good quarterbacks pitching the ball outside, and it was creating a situation where the defense didn't know who to go to, the quarterback or the running back. Here, the running back and the quarterback are, when they do go outside and pitch, they're only 2-3 feet away from each other. Back in the day back in the 80s when Young was there and we had these decent quarterbacks and decent running backs, they were pitching the ball, they were using the whole field. They were using the entire field, and it creates some sort of a problem for the defense. The reason you use an option defense is that because you're not as big as the opposing team and you have to utilize speed. We don't.
Yeah, I would say, like, I get what you're saying, but when you're going to go take a deep dive back, like, into, Mayweather and the Young days, I mean, college football's changed so much since then, that the athletes are just so much better now than they were today, with all due respect, So, I mean, athletes can cover ground a lot more quicker than they can back then. It's a little bit different game. I guess it's the same concept. I get that. Yeah.
Action. So if every reaction should be an action, and you got to come again. This is why these guys make big bucks. Monken makes big bucks. I don't know what the assistants make, but I'm sure it's okay. Okay, they make big bucks because they're supposed to be able to take a team and say, how can we get the best out of this team? That's what they're supposed to be able to do. If you fail at that, you're not the right guys. Okay, college football comes down to two things: recruiting, which is tough here, okay, and execution, and that's what it comes down to. And I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. What I'm seeing is that year by year, and especially this year, they're getting more conservative, and that's what I see.
I think
Yeah.
that let's go ahead, Brendan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like kind of like I'd say 2020 was the last time that Army as a team had a real fear factor to them, to where if I'm like another coach in college football, I don't want to see them on the schedule. But even in 2021, even going 9-4 against a tough schedule, I just feel like they don't put the scare into people, and certainly a lot of fans have this idea of like, oh well, if we control the ball for X amount of minutes or whatever, and then the other team will tire out, and it's like there's no law that says the other team has to tire out. There's no law that says the other team can't outscore you even if you hold on to the ball for 45 minutes. Now that said, I do think there's been an issue this season of not of just like not playing complementary football, and to me, every time Army scores on a long pass, I'm just like, well, that's like empty calories. Um, but there was something, as much as many people are inclined to malign Rich Ellerson, he had a quote that I think is actually kind of great, to where he's like, uh, if you hold on to the ball for you know more than 30 minutes but you still lose, you just got home faster. So,
Yeah, I
Yeah, he
got to
has
tell
some
you,
quotes, Alex, and I'll give him that. Yeah. Let's get to this Bay Knight comment real quick. He says the Army needs to recruit a quarterback who is at least 6'2" and can throw the ball from the pocket.
yes,
Um,
I agree.
I think I think Bryson Daly's about that 6'1", 6'2". I think we haven't seen him throw a pass yet, have we? I don't think we've seen him throw. I could be wrong. I don't think we've seen him throw a pass yet. We saw that run against Louisiana Monroe toward the end of that game, which was just a great effort play. And if that's what you're going to get from Bryson Daly in the future, that the future is going to be bright. I know, Seth, you were calling for, and Steve Kripe of Crawdad's Countdown for Kickoff last night was maybe calling for Bryson to get some snaps here toward the end of the season, and that with three senior quarterbacks ahead of him, right? And well, from yesterday, and Coach Munkin at the press conference after the Air Force game was saying, hey, the guy who has the best practice, the guy who we feel is you know they always say it's kind of an open competition, so to speak, in practice. That nobody's positions are kind of set in stone, so to speak. I mean, when you have an Andre Carter, if he's healthy, he's playing, right? I mean, his Marquell Broughton is playing, but we'll see. We'll see how the next week of practice goes before Troy, and they're Bryson's on every trip and ready to play. So we'll see how that goes. I think we got another comment here. It's a Bay Knight comment. um, Hazik Daniels over 6 foot. Ty Levitai 6'2", 220. Army passing game relies too much on being set up by the run. Daniels can make things happen from the pocket and still run the option. Well, he certainly did that yesterday, right? I mean, he made some plays with his feet, and he was, it's not like percentage wise he was the best thrower yesterday, but when they needed a completion, he got him a completion, and I thought a couple times maybe Army had okay coverage on it too, and he was able to find find the
Wasn't
right
he hurt?
place to
Wasn't
put the
he hurt
ball in.
earlier this year? Wasn't Daniels out for a couple of games?
This year,
not
Yeah, wasn't he out for a day or a game or two? I
he
thought.
was hurt. I know he was banged up. He was
Yeah.
banged up, but I don't know if he's missed any games. I probably should have a better read on the Air Force team.
Guys,
I don't know if he missed any extended time. So
I'm showing my age again, but I was at the Army Air Force game in 1974. As it was after daylight
here we
savings,
go. Here we go.
and they put Lehman Hall in the game. Okay, and Army was losing, and Lehman Hall, with 2.5 minutes left or something like that, drove us down for a game-winning field goal think we won 17-16. So at some point, you got to go out there and find. Boy, I'd love a 6'2" quarterback who could also run, and like a Daniels. I was impressed with that kid. I really was. He's a tough kid. He's good. He's smart. Listen, the Air Force has the same restrictions we do, more or less. I think when it comes to recruiting, I would hope they do. Here he is. They're 6-3. I know they got a lot of fifth-year seniors. We had some too. I get that stuff, but look at Air Force's records over the last 30 years. Back in the 90s, they finished fourth in the country. They were ranked fourth or seventh, one or the other, in the country. They've had seasons where they finished 10-2. The team that used to beat them all the time was BYU when they were in the league. The old coach
dropping some knowledge. Seth, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Mike dropping some knowledge on you. Said Kingsley Fink was the starter in the 74 game.
Right, but Lehman Hall came in.
Okay. Yeah, he was a plebe.
Right, he was a plebe. He came and he won the game. I don't remember who started the game, but I know that the Lehman Hall came in and drove Army down the field and won the game. And we won that game. 2 years later, we had our best record in 5 years, which was Lehman Hall's senior year with we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, the great receiver we had.
Clenny Brundage, right?
Clenny Brundage.
There you go.
Yeah.
Dropping it. Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that. Army finished 7-4 that year, I believe. It wasn't a great, but they beat some decent teams. Nobody great, but back then they didn't have as many bowl games, so we didn't go to a bowl game. Plus, Army didn't go to bowl games back then. Army's first bowl game was in the 80s.
I want to just follow up Bay Knight's point about the quarterbacks and being a little bit bigger. So Christian Anderson, right? When he came to West Point, he's about 6'1". Christian Anderson was about 6'1", and he was a thin guy, maybe like in the 170s, I'm guessing. But by the time he got to that last year, I think Christian Anderson was about, I could be, maybe I'm wrong here, but about 200-ish pounds. So he was running a little bit more physical. He was definitely throwing the ball better his senior year than he was in his previous years, right? And this is a guy who came out of a program where he was in New York State. He had the second most passing yards in a season in New York State football history when he came to West Point. So he's a guy who would throw the ball around in high school, and he's a guy who developed. You're talking about developed in your system. He's a guy who got a little stronger as his career went on, and he was a guy maybe to the Daniels and to the Levitai build by the time he was out of West Point, so to speak. Yeah, so I mean, it is a 225-pound guy. In this program, I'll tell you guys, if they're recruiting a guy who's 6'3", 225 pounds, and he plays quarterback in high school, they're going to either convert you to a fullback or they're going to move you to defense, likely. Bo Kite, a sophomore on the team, he's a fullback now. He was a quarterback in high school. He's about that size, so to speak, and he was a linebacker first. They put him on linebacker last year, moved him to fullback this year. You're not gonna, unless you're. That's not how their mold or model for an option quarterback in their offense is not a 6'2", 225-pound guy. That's not the prototype, so to speak. I don't think. That's just from what I've seen covering the team. So
I mean, we can argue heights and weights, but bringing the guys that are bringing in to play quarterback, it's not like they've never thrown the ball before. I mean, you talk about like guys setting records and all this.
Yeah,
it's just like, and I get, I get that there's a uniqueness to the offense that Army runs, and you want to maintain, a certain individuality, as it were. But yeah, I mean, I just like it's a little frustrating to. I mean, again, in terms of like player evaluation, like I feel like I just feel the fact that they have three senior QBs and they can't settle on one this year. To me, that's an evaluation failure.
So who's our
Yeah,
fourth
and I think
QB? Who's our fourth QB? If those three,
Bryson Daly.
so
yeah,
Daly,
Bryson Daly.
okay, and he's a junior.
Or
Sophomore.
sophomore,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
so
you
you
know,
know
I mean,
what? And I want to say, go ahead, Seth. Go ahead.
you're going to roll your eyes at me, Sal, because you know I always go off on tangents. But I'm looking at our schedule for next year, and boy, it is not an easy schedule. You have LSU at Syracuse, at Air Force, Denver, and Boston College at home. You know, Boston College isn't that good, but it's still a Power Five school. And then you have Coastal Carolina at Army. Um, you know,
And
boy,
Syracuse.
Syracuse is an improving team. Sal and I disagree. I went to Syracuse. I'm a fan. I know they're not as good as a record is, but they're still better than we are. You got UTSA, which I think is a pretty damn good team these days. At
They
the
play Coastal. They play Coastal again next year too.
at
They play
home.
Coastal again
Coastal
next
at
year too.
home.
Yeah, home. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But that's not.
this
That's
is
no.
this is
That's tough.
a normal schedule for Army. You have three. You have one, two, three. Three Power Five schools. LSU, which beat Alabama yesterday. At LSU, you have at Syracuse, which should be improved. They got the quarterbacks back and a young team. I don't know. I mean, right now, as I said yesterday, I'll say it again today. We should be trying other guys out. You need a good quarterback. You need a good quarterback to run an offense. And these guys, I know they're tough, and I appreciate everything these guys have done, but this is not what's going to get it. They're going to be going anyhow. But come on, you
Yeah.
need a good quarterback.
Let's get into a couple of these comments real quick. ST checking in with Scary how thin the offense is. No weapons now that, and he has that Tyrell Robinson is down. And Here we go. Bay Knight saying the 23 schedule equals ouch. And you have Mike checking in with let's study Coastal's option offense. Yeah, the way they run it. I think I was listening to their broadcast on Thursday TV, and I think it was driving me crazy that they were saying Coastal was running the triple option. They don't run a triple option. They more run a little bit more of a read option. And when you have a guy like Grayson McCall, you can run that pretty effectively, because of his ability to run the football and his ability to throw it efficiently too. So, yeah, I mean, I know at the end of every season, not at the end of every season, pre-pandemic, Army coaches would go to different schools, coaches that they have connections with in the past, and they would study certain offenses or certain defenses and see, what they might be able to add to the offense, what they might be able to use for the defense. So, I mean, that happens. It's a good idea actually about studying Coastal's option offense and what's the word? Evolve a little bit, right? Evolve is my word. I don't know if it's the right word, but be
I think
progressive a
it's the
little
right
bit.
word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of evolve the offense. I didn't know that McCall's only other offer was Army. I had no idea that Grayson McCall was offered by Army, to be honest with you. If that's true, um, wow. I'm a big Grayson McCall fan, and just the way he plays the game, his passion for the game. And I think you have that on the opposite side for Army and Marquell Broughton. Just Marquell Broughton, we talked about this yesterday, Seth, about Marquell's when he had to leave the game due to injury yesterday, he
Any
wanted
up?
to be out on the field, and it was like you said, it was the right move maybe to keep him out. But when you have a guy like that, we're saying, how is the team going to respond, right? How's the team going to respond after this Air Force, game that you could have won against Air Force and didn't? You have his leadership on the team. I think they're going to be okay with that. I think they're going to be okay with that. I hope that Marquell can play against Troy. Um, and we talked about Max DiDomenico also stepping up in his place late in the game too. And there's a young player who, if you're looking for guys to get more reps, there's a guy in Max DiDomenico who, next year will probably be a starting safety or be in competition to be a starting safety. So, I mean, you have guys on defense that are getting chances to play a little bit, like a Brett Jarena. You have guys that are getting like a Calvin Crummy was back in the starting lineup in this game against the Air Force. So they have guys there a Bo Nicholas Paul's getting a little bit more snaps at corner, a junior. So I mean, you have guys who are getting a chance. Then, like you said, that's going to be kind of you look at that 2023 schedule, and that's like yeah, the coaches are 100% aware what they're going to go up against next year, but they're trying to get finish this year off strong. Let's see, we got another comment here from Frederica Daniels. That's Marquell Broughton's mom. Thanks, Federica, for joining our podcast and listening to us. We appreciate you. Guest on our podcast. She's been a guest a couple times. Check out our podcast on our YouTube channel with Federica. Very, very great podcast. And she said yesterday was horrible. Yeah, we're reliving it for a second straight day here live, right, Seth? So the second straight day. I think we probably talked about just about I don't know if you guys want to break down play by play. You want me to get the play by play out, and we can break down every play that had yesterday.
We know what the play-by-play was. Quarterback up the middle, running back up the middle. We knew that. I'm sorry, fullback up the middle. I got to tell you, again, Jim Young's first year Army was 2-9. I think it was 83. In 84, over the winter, he decided to go to the option offense. He went out and saw a couple of teams that did it. He got some help. I don't know who from. Okay, and then the starting quarterback at Army, and you'll remember his name before I do, was a senior who was, I believe, a defensive back or a safety. If somebody
Seth, do you listen or watch the Black Knight Nation podcast, Seth?
Yes, I do. You had him on, right? You had him on.
In your free time, Nate Sassaman. Nate Sassaman.
What is his name? I'm old. I don't know.
We had him on twice. We had Nate on twice. Yeah.
Okay, so Nate Sassaman comes in here and leads Army to with an interesting schedule, half Ivy League and half serious teams. Okay, but it's a totally different team. There's got to be. We have 200 kids on the football team, right? I get it. A lot of them aren't any good. I get it.
170.
Okay, 170, close enough. Okay, go out and find somebody who could who can be the quarterback. Because when it comes down, push comes to shove, every team in football, whether it's pro or college, is led. 95% of the successful teams are led by a solid quarterback. That's the key thing, a solid quarterback. Yeah, you want great defenses. I hear all that all the time. But look at the NFL. The best teams are always the teams with the best quarterbacks or near the best quarterbacks. Yeah, you got to have a good defense too. I get it. But a quarterback is the key to your offense. I'm not seeing that now. And again, I'm not sure if it's the quarterback's fault or the coach's fault.
I kind of have mixed comments about, not mixed comments, but I think that Tyre Tyler is a good leader. I really do. I think Tyre Tyler's a tough kid. I think he's a good leader. I think Cade Ballard, when he's in the huddle, is a good leader. I think Jamel Jones, when he's in the huddle, is a good leader. You can have all the good leaders in the world. You can have all the most skilled quarterbacks on your team, on your roster, on your 170-man roster, on your 85-man roster. But you know their strengths, you know what they can do well, and you gotta. I don't know, just not getting in them in the right places to be successful. Apparently, just not putting them in the right spots to be successful is my take. Let's see, we got a couple. Thanks, guys, for. Yeah, here's Bay Knight saying 170 guys for 50 spots, so to speak. Yeah. And there's been some quarterbacks that have been in the program that just haven't that have left to go elsewhere, or just maybe the academy wasn't for them. There was a guy a couple of years back, Christian Parrish, who they had play slot back, I believe, his freshman year, who showed some promise that I know they were high on, and it didn't work out at West Point. I believe he's now on the Georgia Southern roster playing wide receiver. I'm not sure if he's making a bunch of catches in the games and stuff like that, but he's still playing Division I football on Division I roster as far as I know. Let's see, we got more here. Federica Daniel saying, I'm with you, Seth. We have a lot of talent on this team. It is the fact of giving them the chance.
Federica, you're very smart.
Yeah, and Federica, if you'd like to suggest some people, by all means, because we were coming up with some guys last night. We were coming up with guys like Max DiDomenico. We were coming up with guys like Miles Stewart, trying to see who else is out there. Maybe you think that deserves a chance to get some reps out there. Probably know the team just as well as us. So
they have one advantage when it comes to recruiting that other schools don't have. Other schools are limited to 85 scholarships. West Point, the Naval Academy, and Air Force Academy are not
Yeah,
because
it's unlimited pretty much.
it's
Yeah,
unlimited. So you can go out there and get as many kids as you want. That's a good thing and a bad thing. But the good thing is maybe there's a diamond in the rough somewhere, and then go out there and get somebody. Maybe there's a freshman sitting on the bench right now that could be a slot back or something like that. I don't know the answer. Okay, I'm
yeah,
as in the dark as anybody else here. Hopefully, the coaches know the answer. Again, do we not have the talent? Somebody on one of the sites today say we're not going to be good again until World War III or World War IV, and maybe not good then either.
that's great. That's
I've heard
crazy. That's
that line
crazy.
thrown out for 25 years now. Back around '96 or something, somebody said, next time Army, Navy, Air Force would compete for a national championship would be World War III. And we know why that is, because if there's a draft, you get to go to West Point, you don't have to fight. I mean, Doc
Yeah,
Blanchard.
that's
Doc Blanchard
see,
went
that's
to
what.
North Carolina and he went to Army, so he didn't have to go to Europe. Let's be
Mm,
honest. Um, Davis was the
message
opposite,
boards, man.
huh?
The message boards, man. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna
Uh,
say, dude.
but the bottom line is that
Um,
we got to see something new. I'm going to watch that. Is that game on TV, Troy, next week? Do we know that?
Yeah,
it's
it's
on
on
the
NFL
NFL
Network.
Network.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's on the NFL Network. Okay, good to
Yep.
know. Okay, I'm going to be
yeah.
watching that game, and I'm going to tell you. So I don't know whether you want me to write the story or not. Hopefully, I'm available. But I'm going to tell you right off the
Uh,
bat that if I don't see something different from our offense besides run the ball up the middle, boy, you know,
here's a good point from Federica. She said that Brahim Murphy was a wonderful quarterback in high school, and he was recruited as a quarterback, but never played a day at that position. Yeah, now Brahim's a senior, so Brahim is he's been a slot back his whole career pretty much, and like we talked about earlier in this live stream, a guy who I thought would definitely play a factor in yesterday's game, and he got 2 targets. And the one pass to him in the fourth quarter was an incompletion where he was definitely interfered with before the ball got there and there was no call. So, you know, it just that was a
I
place to
thought the
help the
refs had a
Army.
tough game. I thought the refs had a tough game yesterday, both ways.
Yeah. I've like, it's one of those things where they were bad both ways. So I don't really, in the end, I don't feel like the officials had an effect on the final
No,
outcome.
I agree with that, but they had a tough game.
But yeah.
That
And
roughing, that block punt on the roughing the passer, that was obviously a bad call and didn't seem to be that close. And then the pass interference they missed on us. That was a bad call, and there was a third bad call. What was the third bad? Oh, I know. When the guy came running on the field for Air Force, and the Army sent their guy in. Those refs
Oh
should
yeah,
have
the
realized.
illegal substitution.
Yeah, they blamed the illegal substitution on Army. That's a bad
Yeah.
call. Air
But
Force
then
on the field. Once he comes on the field, it's fair game for the Army guy to come in. I don't
yeah.
know what the rules are, but but the bottom line is that the ref should have handled that differently. I thought that hurt us. I don't think they scored because of it. Um, Here's a good question.
yeah, can anyone elaborate on the talent level at the prep school? Yeah, I haven't been able to get to a prep school game, but have been able to watch a little bit of the games. Through a live stream, and they did beat Air Force Prep um a week ago. And they have a quarterback. Larry Robinson is one of their quarterbacks. Zach Mundell is one of their quarterbacks. They kind of at the prep school, they kind of rotate the quarterbacks in, like not every other series, but you might have a quarter or half to play just so they can keep everybody involved in the offense, so to speak. I know that they just had a quarterback prospect, Chris Calhoun, announced that he was leaving the prep school this a couple days ago, and he was a guy who originally committed to Navy and then changed to Army, and now is posting he's a his recruiting's open as a 2023 uh, class 23 recruit now. So there's one guy that won't be making it to West Point.
Oh,
They've had a couple other guys from the prep school team also post that they are leaving the prep school and are done. I'm trying to think of some names. They might come to me as we kind of continue this live stream for a little bit longer. Yeah, I mean, you have some good. I think they have some good offensive linemen, but then you know, coming from Army Prep to a guy like Brady Small, I believe he's their center. Um, on the prep school team. As far as defensive guys, Holden Sapp's a linebacker to maybe a guy to keep track of. He's a guy who they really thought high of in recruiting. They have some pretty good defensive backs as far as I know, but yeah, you'll get those talented guys. You get talented guys. Can you keep these guys at West Point, right? Can you get them from Army Prep to West Point, and then after their sophomore year, can you keep them in the program? And with all due respect, with as many players as Army brings in their freshman classes every year, there's going to be cuts on their team. There's going to be when you bring in 70 plus kids a freshman class, there's going to be cuts, and there's going to be kids that get cut from freshman to sophomore year, and there's going to be guys that say, hey, you know what? I'm really low on the depth chart. I'm going to go play rugby. I'm really low on the depth chart. I'm going to go play sprint football. I'm really low on the depth chart. I'm going to do something intramurals. Maybe I'm going to focus on my academics. So everybody that starts at Army Prep or starts at West Point, that some of the classes can be small at times. The Army's been able to keep some of these senior classes to guys to their senior year and have some pretty strong senior classes. Let's go a couple more. Federica's checking in with some more. Maurice Balan had a hell of a arm in high school, but has not been given a chance. He's a senior slot back also. Balan did get a chance to play quarterback. In a reserve role. I remember during the pandemic year, he came in and picked up a key first down and a win over the Citadel, maybe. I think it was one of those games where he came in late. One of the quarterbacks got banged up, and Army needed a first down to seal the game, and Balan came in and got that. But last year, as a junior, he didn't play in any games. I don't think he might have played in one game in late, and so they moved him to slot back this year to get him on the field a little bit more. And he did actually start. I believe the Air Force game might have been Maurice's first start as a slot back on Saturday. Let's go to Bay again. Bay Knight 20 saying, I think the coaches this year want to get back to banging the fullback and wearing teams down. Here's Federica also checking in with Zach Mundell was great at quarterback at the prep school. So there's a guy to look out for coming up. I'm trying to think of the freshman quarterbacks right now that are on the roster. For some, they're escaping me at the moment. Also, Mitchell, who's a sophomore, Elon Mitchell is also a quarterback on the roster, who would be probably the fifth string quarterback right now. So that's we got through our comments. Anything else you guys want to touch on? I was holding out for a little bit, trying to get Steve on here. Go ahead.
I have a question. Want to make a point. The question is, what percentage of the kids that play football at the prep school end up at the academy as a whole? What would you say?
Well, it depends really. So they probably get like a 50-man roster at the prep school. I would imagine somewhere between 40 and 50 guys. And I would say, you know, 35, 40, because here's the deal too. It's not just you play at the prep school, you automatically go to West Point. You still have to have the test scores and the grades to be accepted to West Point when you play at the prep school. You can't, it doesn't just give you a free pass to go to West Point. And some guys go to the prep school because maybe they need to get their grades up to get acceptance into West Point. And some guys go to the prep school because, hey, they need to develop a little bit more, hit the weight room a little bit more. So it's a variant. There's classes, and with all due respect, sometimes there. A couple years back, the class that was probably seniors when the 2016 or 2017 year, that when they were in prep school, they had a bunch of talented guys, and things happen there. It's
Well, some
prep
other
school.
schools
You're still
look at you
you're
too.
still teenagers. There's a bunch of talented guys that didn't get to Army from that prep school team. Some of them that played ACC football that were on that prep school team, and Army did all right without those guys. So I mean, it's just a matter. Yeah, there's attrition, and let let's get to a couple here before we get
Well, I want to make.
Federica.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead. I'll go right ahead. We'll put this
Well,
up. Go ahead.
I would say when I was at Syracuse, I interviewed the football coach, a guy named Frank Maloney, who had kind of an average record there and was kicked out about a year or two after I graduated. And I said to him that the freshmen that came in the same year I came in, of the 35 or 38 kids that came in, only about 6 or 8 of them were left. And he said to me, I
Yeah,
didn't realize this. I was a young guy. I didn't realize this. He goes, look at every school in the country that by the time you get to the class gets to be seniors, very few of them remain because the only ones who really stick around are the ones who start. Some of them
yeah,
transfer, not starting. Some of them are no good and they get kicked off the team because in the NCAA, as you guys know, it's scholarships are year to year. So a lot of, except for West Point and Navy and Air Force, there's no scholarships. You get in automatically. But if you don't make it, they take your scholarship away at all these other schools. So of the
yeah.
35 kids everybody gets, they lose probably 80% of them by the time they're seniors. Okay,
Well,
so
we have
go ahead, son.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the transfer portal, which is now is a game changer, right? In non-academy Division One
Terrible,
football programs,
terrible.
the transfer portal is a complete game changer. Where who knows? I don't know how programs keep track of their scholarships. The guys come in and out, that fast, and so an Army, the Army, Navy, and Air Force do not get to the benefit of the transfer portal, and
You're not.
so
Sal,
that's a factor.
Sal, by the way, you were bang on about Maurice Bellon. Jamel Jones got knocked out at the end of the Citadel game, and Maurice
Yeah.
Bellon came in to salt the game away on the final drive.
Yeah, yeah, and so what? Maurice Ballon would have been fourth or fifth string quarterback this year, probably, right? So they say, hey, let's move him to slot back. Let's try to get him on the field. And I think that at the end of last year, I could be wrong, or the pandemic year, he was also doing a little punt returning. He was the guy back for punt returns, I think, like that. So we're trying to get him on the field a little bit. And this year, they really were going with Tyrell Robinson, Ijon Marshall, and Brahim Murphy as their top three fullbacks, slot backs, sorry. And then Miles Stewart was getting to be that fourth guy. So Ballon's between like 3 and 5, so to speak. And he's been getting a little bit more playing time now with Tyrell Robinson hurt. Um, I don't know. You know what I was thinking? It is a trick play, but if you toss it to a slot back like Ballon, who's in the game, and you have them throw it downfield, he's a former quarterback, right? It's not like you're giving it to a wide receiver that hasn't thrown the ball in like since his high school days or something like that. Maybe something like that might have been.
Well, but he'd be
I'm
starting.
not a fan of trick. I'm not a fan of trick plays at all. I'm not.
If he had a good arm, he'd be starting. Would you think? Because nobody has a great arm on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, but Seth, why are we in
I
the
don't know, Seth.
why
I
are
don't
we in
know.
the
That was the whole point of my thing. It's like I find the I find the talent evaluation of this team suspect.
I agree.
Yeah, but you got to remember, passing is not if Jeff Monken could and this offense could, they would not throw the ball more than 5 or 6 times a game, right? So it's not like they would how many they have 6 wins now without completing a pass in the Monken era. They would run the
Yeah.
ball. They would run the ball 90 to 95% of the time if it was working right. If they were getting the yards that they should get, if they were moving the chains, so to say that kids should be in the game, a quarterback should be in the game because of his arm. That's not
Well,
their evaluation, right,
he's a,
Brendan? They're not evaluating kids on their arm. They're
Sal,
evaluating kids on how they're able to run the offense.
he's a slot back, so he must be pretty fast. If he has a decent arm, we don't know that. But if he has a decent arm and he's fast, that's what you want a quarterback to be at West Point. I mean, that's what you want. It's all about when you're running an option. It's all about speed and having a quarterback who can throw the ball, so they don't pack the defensive line and and have the linebackers playing three yards behind the line of scrimmage or 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's what an option is supposed to be. 1/3 of an option is supposed to be the option to pass the ball. We never do, and it has worked for us in the past.
I thought the options were quarterback, fullback, slot back, dude.
Hey, one thing we didn't talk about, and the announcers yesterday mentioned it. Up until yesterday, Air Force is what? They're 6-3. So in their first 8.5 games, their punt returner had no. He didn't advance the ball, whatever.
Oh yeah, it was all fair catches. Yeah.
What is that about? Somebody tell me.
No.
What is that?
That's Troy Calhoun's philosophy, I guess. And
That's
Yeah.
amazing
yeah, I
to
mean that
me.
Army returns punts, but they don't really return many kickoffs. You know, they're pretty much fair catching kickoffs to a point, unless they're kicks short, and then there's been a couple fumbles here and there this year, to be honest with you, for Army on short kickoffs. So let's get to Federica Daniels' comment here about Shane Buckingham, who was a quarterback in high school and was converted to a tight end, and now he's the starting tackle for Army. It's a pretty neat story how you can go from like a 212-pound kid out of high school, and now Shane Buckingham's 290. You know, that's the thing. They recruit athletes, right? And then they see how they fit in the program, and then look, a guy who was a quarterback in high school is now your starting right tackle. You know, a guy who was a quarterback in high school is now a slot back. And a guy who was a quarterback in high school is now a slot back. A guy who was a quarterback in high school is now a fullback now. So I mean, they're gonna move. They've had some success with moving guys from positions, right? With it, you look like an Andy Davidson, right? They moved him from linebacker to fullback. Well,
Yep.
he had a great career running the ball in high school in Pennsylvania. They moved Kalen Holt from linebacker to fullback, and then they had that warhorse stable, so to speak, which I don't know if you'll ever see Army have a fullback stable like they did when they had Woolfolk, Davidson, Holt, Slumka, McCoy. I mean, those are five guys that if you look up and down the Army rushing touchdowns career wise, you're going to see a lot of those guys' names on there. Real quick, want to plug this at the beginning. I did a really bad job of it. I just wrote a story on a recruit who committed to Army out of East Coast Prep, but he's from Maine Endwell, New York, and that's the same program that Darnell Woolfolk played for. And he idolized Darnell Woolfolk growing up as a kid, and he also would go and see Darnell Woolfolk play in all his high school games when he was younger. He was 5 or 6 years younger than Darnell, and he went to a game of Darnell's in 2017, watched Darnell play with Darnell's family. And here he is 6 years later, back on an official visit to West Point, and he committed. I think he committed on Friday. um, Jordan Owens is his name.
What position?
And so if you go on blackknightnation.com, I have a story on Jordan Owens. And it's a pretty neat a story about his when he's on when he's watching Darnell plays. Like, there's no way I'll ever be able to play at West Point, or I don't see it in my future. He was a seventh grader, and now 6 years later he's committing to Army, and the connection to Darnell Woolfolk, who's Darnell Woolfolk is the Army career leader for fullbacks in rushing touchdowns. 37 he had. It's like tied for third in Army history. Darnell was a great player, a great captain, just a great person. We've had him on the podcast, and he's a guy who coached this junior class at the prep school. He coached Tyrell Robinson at the prep school. He coached Ijon Marshall at the prep school. He told us I don't know if it was on the podcast, it might have been off the podcast. He told me that Ijon Marshall was just as good as Tyrell Robinson at the prep school, and we've seen when Ijon Marshall has his hands on the ball, pretty much good things happen. So let's see, we might have a couple more here.
School that Ernie Davis went to at Syracuse. The same high school. Same high school.
Maine Endwell.
In the Binghamton area, right?
Yeah, Binghamton area. Yep, Binghamton area. Yep.
Is that where Ernie Davis went? You know, the Heisman Trophy. Ernie Davis, the Heisman Trophy winner at Syracuse, 1959. Did he go there?
Okay, I don't know.
I don't know.
Seth, I am no. We have a lot of comments that I've just
sorry.
Talking about the transfer portal, about free agency for college football. Here we go, Federica Daniel saying passing is not Army, so they can have a great arm and still run the ball. Something about our coaches don't see that for Federica. Sorry, I'm behind in the comments. I apologize. If you want to elaborate, please do. Here's Bay Knight again saying it's easy to say a guy is a good thrower, but they have to have the ability to run this offense, which is kind of what I said too.
Yeah, I don't think any of us deny that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like we'll see. I mean, there's still 4 more games, right? And we're not gonna have a podcast with a Troy preview. Like we're not. Seth. I'm not gonna ask you to watch a Troy film and break down the Troy Trojans for a podcast later this week. But we will have a review on Saturday after the game, and we'll see if we can get a guest. My schedule's a little bit more freed up this week. I'm gonna see if we can get a podcast going on in the middle of the week, maybe Thursday night with a guest. We'll see who I can get. If anybody has any suggestions for guests for the Black Knight Nation podcast, former players, please feel free to send us comment here, even if you're watching the replay, or send me a direct message on Twitter, or you can email me at salinterdonato@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to get you guys the players you want to. We've had some great ones on. We're missing a few, right, Seth, that we want to get on soon. Here we go. Troy beat LSU a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, Troy's a Sun Belt team. They're going to have some athletes. They're going to be able to, like Seth, you say they're not really a scoring team, right?
Yeah, they
But
don't. I'm going to look up the spread now. Let's see what the spread is on
oh
this
yeah, I
game.
wanted to post that today. Shoot, that's on me. I want to post that. I
Look it up
predicted 10. What is it?
Hold on. I'm looking up right now.
The suspense.
They're 4-1 the last 5 games.
I'm trying to. Let's see. I'll have it in 2 seconds. The spread is 9. Troy favored by 9. I had them as a 10-point favorite, so Troy is favored by 9. So Army's going in as a 9-point underdog on Saturday, which I should post beat when we get off. Yeah, and we go through this. I thought we went through this to Troy. We did the Troy scheduling last night, right, Seth? On who
Yeah,
they
we
beat
talked
and who
about
they didn't beat.
Troy,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean Troy's in the top 3 best teams Army will face this season.
Well, here we go with they haven't lost since September 17th. They're on a 6-game winning streak entering this
Yep.
game. So I mean, and yeah, they're playing a lot of Sun Belt teams, and they've won a couple close. They've won 4 out of those 6 by a touchdown or less. So I mean, it seems like a grinding team, and like you said, Seth, they don't score. They're not the offensive juggernaut, but I mean, the most points that they've scored in that winning streak is 34. So, um, but when you're playing a team that's on a roll like that and they're playing at home, you know,
Yeah.
man, you got to bring your best football. No doubt. And we talked about this. You got to bring your best football on Saturday, no doubt, if you're going to beat. I know it's a little cliche ish, right? To bring you got to play their best. But man, from the first snap, Army's got to be engaged because, that's a team that's certainly playing some really top notch football. And a team, maybe if they have, maybe run the table, who knows? Maybe they haven't been top 25 by the end of the year. I don't know. They could be.
They're still very much in competition to win the Sun Belt, which is a quality conference. So
Yeah. Yeah, normally probably the winner of the Sun Belt will probably get some votes in the polls at the end of the season. And like you look at Coastal, they're 8-1. I didn't check the polls today about Coastal being ranked. Yeah, I know I saw something on Twitter where fans.
I'm checking right now if they got any points or anything.
They're the third in the AP. They're 28. They're the third team out of the top 25 right now. 8-1 record. You gotta love it when they put teams like it's just a Power Five versus a Group of Five. That's another podcast, probably. Where you have teams that are 6. If Coastal was 9-0, I'm not sure they would be in the top 25 right now. Which is, but last year when they were having a good season, they were in the top 25 for a good part of the year. So, yeah. And I was going to check real quick on
Liberty ranked 19. They're 8-1.
Who's that?
Liberty. The Liberty
Oh
Flames.
yeah, Liberty. Yeah, Liberty's 8-1. Yeah. So Troy received 5 points in the AP poll this week. So UTSA also received 5 points. And let's see on the coaches poll. Coastal Carolina is 26th in the coaches poll. So they're around the cusp of being ranked by the coaches. and
Yeah.
Troy's got some votes. Wake Forest fell out of the top 25 with their loss to North Carolina State.
I'm curious,
So
who
I
are the
mean,
three best? You said Troy's one of the three best. Who are the other two?
Coastal and UTSA.
wow, you
And
think
then,
they're better than Wake, huh?
Wake
well,
Forest.
and Wake too. So those four are like the four best.
Yeah, I think I think right now 5 teams are. I'm missing one team that's also bowl eligible that's been on Army scheduled. It's those 4, and I thought there was one more. I could be wrong. Air Force, duh, Air Force. So they'd have 5 bowl eligible teams on their schedule, and UConn has a chance to be bowl eligible too with a win either. Man, UConn versus Liberty this week coming up, right? And then
Where,
UConn plays Army
where's
the
that?
week after. So maybe UConn gets a little banged up in that Liberty game. Maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens. They've had a good year, 5-5 for that UConn team. I mean, I didn't think they. I don't know. Jim Mora, first year coach, got that NFL and college background, and certainly changing the team in year 1. I mean, that doesn't happen right away at a lot of schools, especially schools that have experienced. Was experienced losing for a while now, and we'll see. I think the one thing with UConn, and I don't know how much the roster has kind of overhauled with Jim Mora being there, and like we say, transfer windows and all that kind of stuff. But Aaron Smith, Army wide receivers coach, was a assistant coach last year at UConn, so he may have a little intel on some of the players that are on the UConn roster for that game. But I guess we're waiting to see.
Point underdog. UConn's a 14.5 point underdog. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Liberty's 19 in the country. Yeah, they're 8-1. They have one loss. Yeah, I mean, UConn's gonna. I would like to see how that game unfolds because if UConn can hang in with Liberty, man, if they were able to upset Liberty, that's then that's the same thing with UConn. They come into Mikey Stadium on that high, and you know, we talked about Seth. Other than UMass, that's the game that you should win. Left in the schedule on the 4 games, and
Boy,
as
Liberty
far as the other 3.
you 41-14. And
What's
they
that?
wow. And they lost to Wake Forest by 1 point.
What did you say?
Liberty beat BYU 41-14, and they lost to Wake Forest by 1 point.
Yeah, that's their only loss of the season for
Yeah.
Liberty. Yeah. And they lost Malik Willis. Malik Willis is starting for the Titans right now, their quarterback from last year. And I think they got another transfer quarterback. I could be wrong. And yeah, BYU to me, and I mean maybe this is taking a shot. They were one of the most overrated teams when it came into preseason. They were ranked in the top 15, I think, or definitely the top 20 in the preseason. And yeah, they were a little overrated in my point.
Yeah. I mean, they had done really well in 2020 and 2021, so that's going to earn you.
Yeah, and I guess their quarterback was okay. I want to check real quick why we I don't know why I feel like this is definitely something we need to know. Actually, Charlie Brewer was the guy I was thinking about for Liberty. He was quarterback at Baylor, I believe, but he's not played too much for them. They've gone with like a couple different quarterback for Liberty. They've gone with a couple different quarterbacks. So yeah, that's a game I keep an eye on. 3:30 3:30 for Army Troy. I got to figure out. We always like to scout. I always like to scout the next opponent at least, see what Army's going up against. So we'll see. I got to see.
We'll be watching that, and I got to tell you, it's interesting. UConn is 5-5, like you said. They need to win one of the next 2 games to be bowl eligible. I'm not sure anybody wants them because they have no fan base. But
Hey.
But well, the famous story that when they went to the Fiesta Bowl, they returned almost all their tickets, as I recall. Nobody wanted to go to the game, and they were a good team. They won the Big East. I think they were 8-4 for the year. I have to go back and look at that. But
no, you're right.
Yeah, they managed to win the Big East with Randy Edsel, who I went to Syracuse with, and he was my class. He was their coach and did a great job. Then left for Maryland, then came back to UConn. Didn't have the same magic when you're not in the Big East, which was a decent conference then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was UConn, but
They're in
they don't have any fans, so I don't know who's going to want them to be in their bowl game. You want to bring at least 3,000-4,000 fans. I don't think UConn does
yeah.
that.
We'll see. We'll see what happens this week with them and Liberty, and we'll see what you know, if they beat Liberty, and they're still going to come in pretty pumped up because they might be playing for bowl eligibility against
Yep.
Army. So we'll see what happens with that. Man, we really appreciate all the interactions tonight. That's what I want this to be tonight. We got Bay Knight, Federica Daniels, we got Mike Filowski, we got a couple other people in there commenting. We really appreciate it. Apologize for last night. I wasn't able to we weren't able to get your comments on last night after the game. So this is what we'll see what happens. Maybe definitely do this during a bye week, during Army's bye week between UMass and Navy. Maybe do something like this and just keep Army fans engaged, right? I mean, yeah, they're 3-5, but I know there's a lot of passionate people in the Black Knight Nation that like to talk Army football, and us three could probably talk Army football to past midnight tonight. So and we appreciate Seth and Brendan you joining me tonight, and we'll definitely see us back on soon if it's not the recap.
I'll finish out with what I said at the top. If it's up to me, and it's not, but unless there's some kind of incredible change improvement the next 4 games at the end of the season, if it was up to me, it's bye Brent Davis, and Matt Trinkle's getting a nice promotion to OC, but I don't think that'll happen either way.
I'll leave on this note 2 notes. Number 1, got to see something different next week and every week going forward. Number 2, I didn't bring this up yet, but what's the deal with the Army gift shop and the fact they have no items there? I've been into gift shops here, and there's nothing there. And I know there's a problem with product coming in from overseas and all that stuff, but I've been
you're talking like the physical, like in-person gift shop.
I went to the physical right off campus, in that old, they took over that old college, and it's a beautiful building, and they have the Hall of Fame nearby, or the museum nearby, not the Hall of Fame, museum. And I went
into the visitor center, yeah.
The visitor center, and there's nothing there in terms of product. I've been to 3 or 4 other campuses this fall, and they're packed with product. So I'd love to, if anybody from West Point is listening, please let us know why there's no product in your gift shop.
But that was a couple of weeks. That was a couple of weeks ago, right?
I was there after the what was not the last home game, the home game before that, Georgia State.
That's like a month ago, Seth.
No, I want to buy some stuff. I'm wearing the Packers stuff here. Come on.
We need Black Knight Nation T-shirts. That's what we need. I really have to get going on designs with that, and there are a few out there, few and far between out there. But we're working on some new designs. Hopefully, man, I wish we had them this season. That'd be sweet.
There you go.
We got a couple more comments, and from Bay Knight, this show is great for Army football fans. I appreciate what you guys do. Go to Alumni Hall; they have good stuff. He's giving you a little advice there.
Where is that?
Huh?
Where is Alumni Hall? Where is that?
That's probably on it's probably within campus, so to speak, like where the barracks is and stuff like that. Where they it's late. I'm coming up with the word, but the general area or whatever they call it. My fault.
I want to spend a couple $100 on Army, sweatshirts and whatever I get. And I went into that visitor center place, and which is in the past had been pretty good before COVID. And I'm telling you, there was nothing there. It was 90% empty, nothing, just nothing there. And obviously, there's some sort of supply chain issue, I would imagine. But why are other schools not having the same problem? And I can go buy it online. Online, there's plenty of.
That's the thing, Seth. How many people really are going to the visitor center looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, this should be maybe stocked or whatever, but a lot of people are
After
purchasing
football,
online these days. So I mean,
before
good
football
point. Good point.
games, and
Hey,
if
we
the
got more. Wait, okay, here we go. It's on the walk up from the Buffalo Field to Mikey. He said Alumni Hall.
okay, Buffalo Field's the front.
Yeah,
Is
it's on
that
the hill. It's probably on the hill. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
okay.
pop.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bay night,
Bay,
man. We gotta
Bay
get
Night,
Bay night.
Bay Night, I appreciate that you appreciate the show, and I appreciate coming on the show because it's like group therapy for me. Because if I just get left to my lonesome with this stuff, it's not very healthy.
Exactly. And guys, if you're watching here, if you're still watching us or you're going to watch the replay, please check out. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube right now, give us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up, check the bell for notifications. It'll tell you when we're going to be coming on, when our next podcasts are going to be coming on. Check our Spotify. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. You can rate, review us. Give us a subscription to on there. Black Knight Nation.com, of course, will have your stories like Seth Mendelson's game story, like my recruiting story on Jordan Owens that I wrote today. I'll do a quick thoughts sometime between tonight and tomorrow night, probably with my quick thoughts on the game. A lot of stuff we talk about on here will probably be in my quick thoughts. And then on Tuesday, we'll have Jeff Munkin's press conference on Tuesday. I'm actually free to be on that press conference on Tuesday, so I might pop in and ask a few questions there. And also, our Instagram accounts, our Twitter accounts, and social media is so important to us, and we really appreciate the Black Knight Nation here. That's been there since December 2020 when we really did a relaunch of Black Knight Nation, and the support has been great. We hear a lot of good things from people, and we just want to keep this going. If you go on our website, blackknightnation.com, along the right side, there is a PayPal donation. If you guys really like what we're doing, and you'd like to donate some money to the Black Knight Nation to pay for our streams and maybe other things that we do at Black Knight Nation, and we really would appreciate that too. So we really appreciate everything the Black Knight Nation does for us too. Let's see, we got Bay Knight doesn't want to leave. A little red brick buildings, he says, for Alumni Hall, and maybe we can still have a winning record. He says, well, you need to win 3 out of the last 4, right? Is that the way it goes for a winning record? Then you get to 6-6, and then you got to win the bowl game. I guess you run the table, you have a winning record. So, I don't know. Oh, what bell? Tap the bell for notifications. If you're on YouTube and you're on the video right now, I think near the share um option, I think there's a bell for notifications on YouTube. At least that's where it was today for me. So if you tap that bell, you'll get notifications. Bay, I'll walk you through it if you want to direct message me on Twitter or just contact me. I'll try to walk you through that. Oops, that was a bad one. We don't want that one. Sorry, guys.
okay, not about.
Yeah, we're getting these bots checking us out too, man. I apologize for that. Luckily on the audio, nobody will see that. So I mean, we're getting that's terrible. I knew it was gonna happen. Like there's so many messages that we're getting for bots too. So I guess they just got some free advertising on Black Knight Nation on our YouTube video. Let's see. I'm trying to call these up. Okay. They just keeps on wanting to talk about Black Black Knight football here. He says 2019 was a down year and we bounded back after that. Yeah, we'll see what the team we talked about it, right? Seth, we'll see what this team is made of come Saturday against Troy.
Looking forward to
And
it.
I think I think the effort's gonna be there. It's just, can they execute and can they come out and you know, contain Troy's offense? And I think it'll be a good football game. I don't think that Troy's gonna, have their way with the Black Knights, but I think that we'll see how they respond. I was talking about this today with somebody. I think that quarterback who be interesting to see who starts at quarterback against Troy. You might see Tyler back in. You might see the 2 quarterback system again. We'll see. We'll see how practice goes this week. Do we have anything else? Oh, he was just Bay Knight was commenting on the bots that are also trying to get through the Black Knight Nation comments today. That I did a terrible job of posting there. So guys, we're gonna call it a night here. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll
Thanks.
probably have to get. Oh, go ahead, Seth.
No, thanks for having us. I love it. I so enjoy
Yeah,
this. It's great
yeah, we're
therapy.
gonna.
Brendan's point, great therapy.
Yeah, bike rides have been my therapy over the weekend. So I took another one today. They just, yeah, and then it took me a little bit longer than I wanted to write the recruiting story because I just was like trying. Yeah, I was watching you know what? Watching Army can be frustrating, but to tell you the truth, being an Arizona Cardinals fan is much more frustrating. So I mean, watching that game today against the Seahawks was ridiculous. And is Bay Knight probably still checking in here? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully Troy has a lot of fat guys out there we can wear down.
All right. I think maybe it's not good.
Hey,
Hey,
we'll see. We'll see. Well, hey, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We're gonna wrap this up, and yeah, keep an eye out on our social medias. We'll be back. I'm gonna get Steve Anderson on probably at some point this week to get his thoughts on the Air Force game, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for the conversation. Check out BlackKnightNation.com for your latest on Army sports.
good night, guys.
See ya. Beat Troy.